So I didn't answer the door. I didn't call back. I didn't fall for the crocodile tears or the guilt bombs. Instead, I hit go live. I told my story, raw, unfiltered, to 60,000 people who actually listened. And guess what? That clip didn't just go viral, it started a movement. Of people finally saying, enough. Enough being mocked. Used. Gaslit by their own families. And to every one of you watching right now, thank you. Seriously. If this hit home, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to hear your story. Subscribe. Comment. Share. Let's make sure no one feels alone again. Inspired by that quiet strength you find when you finally stop trying to explain yourself to people who never really cared. Have you ever had a moment where it just clicks? Like, 1 second you're scrolling your phone without thinking, and the next, your whole world sharpens. Crystal clear. No more pretending. No more excuses. Just truth, hard, brutal truth. Mine came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my apartment, on the couch, half listening to a podcast, scrolling Instagram like I always do. And then I saw it. My sister's story. A grainy, shaky video. My dad. A beer in one hand, leaning back in his chair, laughing. Tyler? He's got the easiest life on earth. Sits in his room all day playing video games like some man-child, and somehow pays rent. Watch, he'll be broke by next year. The room spun. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until my lungs burned. That wasn't a joke. That was real. That was them, my family, when they thought I wasn't listening. Let me back up. My name's Tyler. I'm 28. I live in Seattle, and for the past few years, I've been working as a full-time streamer, gaming, commentary, live reactions, the whole setup. I've built a strong community online. Sponsors, donations, ad revenue, it's not just sustainable. It's thriving. I'm not flashy, but I make 6 figures, and I've worked hard to get here. But I don't really talk about it. Not with my family, at least. My parents, Rick and Lana, are old school. They believe in cubicles, lunch breaks, 9-to-5 jobs with miserable commutes. Real work, as my dad puts it. My sister Chloe? She's 23, fresh out of college, still figuring things out, which is code for bouncing between part-time jobs and hoping someone else picks up the slack. And that someone's usually me. I've helped them more times than I can count, covered my parents' rent when dad's hours got cut, paid for mom's medication when insurance didn't. I even loaned Chloe money for her car and never asked for it back. I never rubbed it in. I never expected a parade. I just helped. Because that's what you do for family. Right? But even from the beginning, there were cracks. Comments here and there. Must be nice to play all day. You should get out more, experience the real world. Any plans for a real career? They'd laugh, shake their heads like they were joking, but it never felt like a joke. When I told them I was going full-time as a creator, my dad grunted and said, "Guess we'll see how long that lasts." My mom just asked if I had backup health insurance. No one asked what I did. No one cared to understand. But when bills piled up or someone's credit card hit its limit, guess who they called? Me. And I picked up. Every single time. So when I watched that video, watched them laugh at me behind my back, something snapped. I realized I wasn't just the misunderstood son. To them, I was a punchline. It was my mom's idea to do a family game night. She said it had been too long since we all sat down together, like the kind of family you see in insurance commercials, warm light, matching mugs, laughter over a board game. I didn't want to go. But I went. Her lasagna was in the oven when I got there, the kitchen full of that nostalgic scent that usually softened me. Chloe was on the couch scrolling TikTok. Dad was already on his second beer, flipping channels. The house hadn't changed, same sagging recliner, same dusty mantle photos, but something in me felt different walking in. Like I was seeing everything under a new light. We sat around the dining table playing Uno. Mom passed out cards. Chloe rolled her eyes, already bored. Dad made some crack about how this is probably the only game Tyler's good at. I forced a laugh. That was always easier. Still sleeping until noon, he said, not even looking up from his cards. I work late, I replied calmly. Work, Chloe muttered with a smirk, tossing a draw 4 in my direction. Sure. Mom chimed in next, casually nostalgic. Remember when you wanted to be a pilot? Or was it a scientist? You had such big dreams. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Nothing loud. Nothing direct. Just a steady stream of condescension camouflaged as small talk. I bit my tongue because I'd done it for years. I reminded myself, they're just stuck in their way. They don't mean it. They're family. What I didn't know, as I sat there stacking my cards and swallowing my pride, was that Chloe had her phone propped in her lap. Recording. Quietly. Casually. Like she was capturing some candid behind-the-scenes reel. A blooper. A joke. I found out 2 days later. It was late. I had just wrapped a long stream, still riding the post-game adrenaline. I flopped onto my couch, opened Instagram, and mindlessly tapped through stories. There it was, Chloe's profile. Her thumbnail was my dad's face. I tapped. The video was grainy, phone angled from under the table. My dad, laughing, shoulders shaking. I swear, Tyler's got the easiest life ever. Plays his little games, talks to nerds, and somehow pays rent. Kid wouldn't even notice if he ended up homeless. Off-camera giggles. Chloe's. My mom's. Even Uncle Dave's muffled laugh in the background. I swiped to the next one. He calls himself a content creator, Dad continued, doing air quotes. You know what we called that in my day? Unemployed. More laughter. Then Chloe flipped the camera to her face and whispered, "This is why he never brings a girl home." I froze. It's hard to describe what it feels like when humiliation is served to you in video format, packaged, filtered, and shared like a joke between friends. But it wasn't just the words. It was the way they laughed. The comfort. The ease. Like it wasn't the first time. I sat there, phone in hand, pulse pounding in my ears. All I could think about was the money I'd sent Chloe last month when she couldn't make rent. The groceries I bought Mom. The credit card I paid off for Dad. The silent, thankless tab I'd been running for years. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared at the screen and thought. They don't love me. They love what I give them. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Or maybe, finally, something clicked. I opened my banking app that night, not even sure why. Maybe to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Maybe just to see it in black and white. There it was, line after line of silent proof. $1,200 for rent last March. $620 for Mom's medication when her insurance didn't cover a thing. Another $500 wired to Chloe last winter when her car broke down. A $3,000 credit card bill I paid off for Dad after he forgot to tell anyone it was past due. There were groceries. Utility bills. A new laptop for Chloe when hers crashed during finals. Random Venmo transfers for just a little short this month. And I never asked for any of it back. Never made a scene. Never held it over their heads. I figured that's just what family did, we covered for each other. Except it was never each other. It was always me. I remembered Dad calling, gruff but direct. We're a little tight this month, Ty. You got us? Mom, sweet but practiced, honey, I'd never ask if it wasn't important. We just need a little help to get through the week. Chloe, of course, didn't ask. She assumed. She'd send a single text, need $200 ASAP, followed by a Venmo request. No explanation. No thanks. No question mark. And I sent it. Every single time. Not once did any of them ask how I was doing. Not once did they check if I needed anything. And definitely not once did they say they were proud. What hurt more than the money was how easy it was for them to take without gratitude, and to laugh about me when I wasn't looking. There were moments over the years when I'd tried to explain what I did for a living. That streaming wasn't just games, that it took strategy, timing, consistency, branding, that it was a business. But my dad would shake his head and say, "It's just not real work, son." Mom would change the subject. "Well, as long as you're eating right," she'd say, like I was still 13. Chloe would snort and mutter something like, "Living the dream, huh?" I used to shrug it off. Pretend it didn't sting. Tell myself they were just old-fashioned, or that I needed thicker skin. I figured respect would come with time, once they saw the checks, the stability, the success. But it never did. Because they didn't see me. They saw what I could provide. And when I stopped providing, I stopped existing. Sitting there, scrolling through transactions and old text threads, it finally landed with full weight. They never respected me. They never cared to understand me. But they never hesitated to ask for my help. They needed me. But they didn't value me. And the second they thought no one was watching, they laughed. That's when I knew something had to change. Not because I wanted revenge. Not even because I was angry. But because, for the first time in years, I realized. I didn't owe them anything. I didn't yell. I didn't call. I just opened our family group chat and typed. Just saw Chloe's video. Didn't realize you all thought so little of me. I stared at it for a second, then hit send. The 3 little dots popped up almost immediately. First Mom, then Chloe, then gone. Nothing. Then finally, Dad replied. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. It was a joke." A beat later, Chloe jumped in. "LOL, chill, it wasn't serious, you know how Dad gets after a couple drinks." There it was. The dismissal. The wave of the hand. The expectation that I'd let it slide, again. That I'd laugh it off because they said it wasn't that deep. Like the only problem here was me not having a sense of humor. I was supposed to be the ATM and the punching bag. Another message from Dad. "You really gonna act like a child over this? Grow up, Tyler." Mom tried to play cleanup. "Honey, you know your father didn't mean it. Let's not turn this into a whole thing." I didn't respond right away. I just sat there, jaw tight, letting the words roll over me like a wave I'd learned to drown in. Then I typed one more message. "If I'm such an embarrassment, then you won't have to worry about where the money comes from anymore. Don't ask me for another cent." And I muted the chat. There was no anger. No adrenaline. Just stillness. Like a door had quietly shut somewhere inside me, and behind it was all the guilt I'd carried for years. I didn't block them. Not yet. But for the first time in my adult life, I had no intention of replying. No fixing it. No smoothing it over. No reaching for validation they were never going to give. I was done. I didn't check the bank account because I suspected anything. Honestly, I just wanted to be sure I wasn't overreacting, that maybe I was making this bigger than it really was. But the moment the app loaded, my stomach dropped. Withdrawal. $600. 2 days ago. Withdrawal. $150. Same day. Another one. $350. Yesterday. All from the joint emergency account. The one I'd set up years ago when Dad lost his job, back when I still believed helping them would bring us closer. We never used it unless something serious came up. That was the rule. I scrolled further. $400. $275. $800. It wasn't one emergency. It was a slow, methodical draining. And it wasn't an accident. They waited until I went quiet. Until I stopped replying. Until they felt me pulling away. Then they took. I just sat there, blinking at the numbers, jaw locked so tight it hurt. They didn't even ask. No explanation. No apology. Just reached into my pocket and helped themselves. I thought back to every time I'd made excuses for them. They don't mean to hurt me. They're just from a different generation. They're trying their best. But this wasn't an offhand comment or a bad joke. This was theft. Cold, calculated, entitled theft. And the worst part? It didn't even surprise me. I closed the app and just stared at the wall, letting it sink in. There were no tears, no yelling, no breaking things. Just this numb ache in my chest that pulsed with every breath. I remembered being 16, skipping out on buying a winter coat so Chloe could go to that overpriced dance in a new dress. I remembered paying off Dad's bounce checks with the tips I saved from working late-night shifts. I remembered Mom once telling me, "You've always been the strong one," like that strength was a credit line they could keep tapping. And I let them. But this was the last time. I called the bank immediately. Had my name removed from the joint account. Froze the card. Changed every password connected to anything they had access to. Then I blocked their numbers. Not just on my phone, but on everything. Socials. Emails. Payment apps. Gone. They could scream into the void all they wanted. I wouldn't hear it. And as the silence settled in, something unexpected followed: peace. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Just peace. Like a splinter that had been buried under my skin for years had finally worked its way out. And I realized, I didn't miss them. I missed the version of them I thought they could be. But that version never existed. The banging started just after 9 p.m., loud, sharp, rhythmic. Not a knock. A demand. I didn't even need to look. I already knew. I stood still in the middle of my apartment, phone in hand, staring at the front door like it might burst open on its own. Tyler. My father's voice, muffled but unmistakable, came through the door. Open the damn door. He pounded again. The building's hallway echoed with each hit. I pictured my neighbors peeking through their peepholes, wondering if they should call the cops or mind their business. "Don't act like a child," he shouted. "You really think you're gonna cut us off over a video? Grow up." I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There he was, face red, jaw clenched, fists balled like he wanted to punch through the wood. I'd seen that look my whole life. The one that meant he was about to lose control. For a second, I thought about walking away. Just letting him yell until he wore himself out. But I didn't. I unlocked the door and cracked it just an inch. That was enough. He shoved it open and barreled past me like he still lived here. Like this was his space. Like I was the one who had something to answer for. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked, turning to face me. "You blocked your mother, your sister, after everything we've done for you?" I closed the door behind him, slow and deliberate. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated. "You mean the theft? Or the part where you laughed behind my back and called my life a joke?" He scoffed, waving a hand. "Jesus, it was a joke. You're seriously throwing a tantrum over that?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm responding to years of being used. Big difference." His voice rose, all bark, no pause. "We raised you. Put a roof over your head. You think you'd be where you were if it wasn't for us?" I stepped closer, my voice sharp now. "And I paid you back. Over and over. Rent. Medical bills. Chloe's messes. I gave you everything, and you still treated me like trash." His eyes narrowed. "You're nothing but a spoiled little boy who got lucky. You think any of this," he gestured around the apartment, "makes you important?" I didn't flinch. "You stole from me," I said quietly. "That's who you are." His face twisted. I saw something flicker, anger, yes, but underneath it, fear. He stepped closer. Too close. His finger jabbed toward my chest. You think you're better than us now, huh? Just 'cause you make a few bucks playing games on the internet? No, I said. I know I am. He froze. The silence between us was heavy, years of resentment compressed into one breathless moment. He opened his mouth like he had more venom to spit, but nothing came out. For the first time in my life, he didn't know what to say. You need me, I said. Not the other way around. His jaw twitched. I could see the panic setting in, masked behind whatever pride he had left. His bluff had been called, and he had no cards. I walked to the door and held it open. He didn't move. So I stared at him, not scared, not emotional, just done. Get out. He stood there for one long second too many. Then, finally, he turned and walked out. I closed the door behind him. Locked it. And just stood there, hands steady, heart quiet, as the last bit of fear left my body. I had stood my ground. And I wasn't going back. The message came late. From an unknown number. Hey. It's Chloe. Don't freak out. Just listen. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over block. But something in me, curiosity, maybe, told me to keep reading. I didn't just record it. I planned it. My chest tightened. I was pissed you wouldn't send the extra money for my rent. You've been acting all holier than thou lately, like you're better than us just 'cause you sit in your room and stream for a living. So yeah, I filmed Dad. I posted it. He dared me to, actually. Thought it'd be funny. Said it might finally put you in your place. I blinked, reread it. Again. And again. It was just supposed to get your attention. You used to be the nice one. The one who always helped. Now you're just cold. Distant. This was never meant to blow up like this. My fingers went numb. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just scrolled. Honestly, I thought if we embarrassed you a little, maybe you'd come crawling back like you always do. I mean, you never don't, right? There it was. Not just the mockery. Not just the recording. But the intent. She'd weaponized my silence. My boundaries. My decision to not keep bailing her out. And instead of respecting it, she turned it into a spectacle, bait for laughs, a tactic to humiliate me back into being useful. It hadn't been an accident. It wasn't even impulsive. It was a plan. A coordinated act between her and my father, maybe even my mom, to shame me back into line. I sat there in the glow of the screen, my apartment silent except for the distant hum of the fridge. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. Anger implies you still care. That you still want to be heard. What I felt was colder. Cleaner. Like every illusion I'd ever held onto about my family had finally shattered, and all that was left was truth. They never respected me. They just knew I was easy to use. The voicemail popped up on a Wednesday morning. No text, no context, just a 54-second audio clip from Mom's number. I almost deleted it. I figured it was another guilt trip waiting to happen. But curiosity got the better of me, so I hit play. Her voice came through soft, shaky. I don't know what we're gonna do, she said. I screwed up. We all did. She was crying. Not theatrical crying, not the kind she used to use to smooth things over. This was raw. Unfiltered. We treated him like crap, and now he's gone, she whispered. Rick's losing money again. He won't admit it, but I know. He's gambling. And Chloe. Chloe maxed out another card last week. She's pretending everything's fine, but it's not. It's all falling apart. A pause. A long, exhausted breath. I didn't think he'd actually leave. I thought he'd get mad, cool off, and come back like always. But now I think he's serious. and I don't know what we're gonna do without him." The voicemail ended there. I played it twice, just to be sure I heard what I thought I did. She hadn't meant to send it. I was never supposed to hear that part. The part where the mask slipped. Where the whole truth bled through the cracks. They didn't miss me. They missed the safety net. All the lectures about family. All the jokes and the dismissiveness. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about love. It was about survival. I wasn't their son. I was their last option. And now they were drowning. I didn't text back. Didn't reply to the voicemail. Didn't acknowledge the dozens of missed calls that piled up over the next few days. Instead, I opened OBS. For years, I kept my personal life off my stream. I gave people games, commentary, a few jokes, never the real stuff. But that night, something told me to drop the filter. To talk. Just once. I titled the stream, "Let's Talk." No alerts, no sponsors. Just me and a mic. I told them everything. Not with bitterness, not with rage, just truth. I talked about being laughed at behind my back. About helping people who never said thank you. About being used, not seen. About what it feels like when the people who raised you only ever saw your worth in dollars. It was an event session. It was clarity. By the time I ended the stream, nearly 60,000 people had tuned in. And that was just the beginning. Clips flooded Reddit, TikTok, YouTube. DMs poured in from strangers sharing their own stories, people who had been discarded, dismissed, devalued by their own families. People who had finally walked away. People who hadn't yet, but needed to. They weren't fans anymore. They were witnesses. And somehow, I felt seen. One streamer stitched my clip and said, "This man just set boundaries harder than 90% of us ever will." Someone else commented, "This is what healing looks like. Not dramatic. Just clean. Just done." My follower count doubled that week. Sponsors started emailing. But more than that, the weight lifted. Not because I'd gone viral. Because, for the first time, I was being heard, without having to justify myself. I sat in my apartment the next morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over the skyline. No messages. No noise. Just quiet. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt whole. The knock came just as I was reading chat aloud. It was slow, heavy, not frantic like before. Just loud enough to be heard through the music in my headset. I muted the mic, but I didn't pause the stream. The chat kept moving, full of questions, reactions, support. My camera stayed on. Another knock. Then a pause. I walked to the door, silent. Looked through the peephole. Rick. Standing there with that same stiff jaw, same clenched hands. But this time, no yelling. No banging. Just waiting. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for me to break like I always had. Maybe to replay the same cycle we'd repeated for years. But I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, watching. Then I turned around and walked back to my desk. Sat down. Unmuted. "Anyway," I said to the stream, "where were we?" And I smiled. Not in defiance. Not in revenge. Just in peace. That knock didn't scare me anymore. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an obligation. It was simply, someone I used to know, on the other side of a door I had no intention of opening. If the people who raised you turned their backs the second you outgrew them, would you still feel guilty for walking away? Think about it. When loyalty becomes one-sided, when respect is conditional, and love feels more like leverage than care, are you still expected to stay? Let me know what you'd do. Because sometimes, survival means walking away from the people who built your house, just so you can build your own home. Respect is not owed just because someone shares your blood. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is build a new life where your worth isn't up for debate. You don't need to earn a seat at a table where people mock you. Build your own table. And watch who dares to knock. And if this story resonated with you, even just a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone is still trying to earn love from people who only ever saw them as a resource. Someone is biting their tongue at dinner tables where their voice has never truly been welcome. And someone, maybe just like you, is wondering if walking away makes them the bad guy. It doesn't. Sharing these stories matters. Not just to tell the truth, but to let others know they're not alone. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. That choosing peace over people pleasing is strength, not shame. So hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you believe in stories that remind us what self-worth really looks like. Together, we can build something better, a world where dignity isn't negotiable, and where no one has to apologize for walking away from the people who couldn't see their value. Thanks for being here. You matter. And your story does too.